Is Russia realizing that it's going to be racing against a coalition of Western countries sending heavy hitter aid to Ukraine? And just how is Russia trying to spin this reality for its people? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It is January 19th, 2023. This is your daily Ukraine update. Let's get right into it. All right, first, when we look at the control map, there's actually just minor clarifications. Just some tiny details reflecting reality. You can see here, this shows actually that Russian forces have entered the northeast urban sector of Bakhmut, just gaining a smallest foothold on a small, basically holding an intersection of between two roadways. You can see also in Soledar, there we go. This has actually corrected some of the record, showing that Russian forces, while they do control all of Soledar and a significant portion of Sil, which is here listed as Krasnopovlika, they control a significant amount of their territorial gain is empty fields outside Soledar with not a ton of tactical value. But beyond that, there's no real evidence of significant territory changing hands. When we go over to the combat map, you guys can see that here too, there is a fairly significant number of at least attacks launched by Russian forces. You can see here again, they are pushing to this village of Sil to the northeast of Soledar, northwest of Soledar, and continuing to advance towards Blahodatne and continuing to push towards Krasnohora. This map does not have Russian forces as having occupied. Oh no, I'm sorry. This has Russian forces partially occupying a suburban, like an exurb of Bakhmut here. Though they were about 500 meters closer in other maps. You can see here again, they are continuing their push into the eastern side of Bakhmut and from the south in Klachivka as well. So a lot of Russian combat power continues to be thrown into Bakhmut. Gains, while probably several times faster than the virtually non-existent gains of the past several weeks. Russia's combat power is getting them more and more territory. You can also see here, they are continuing their effort to encircle Russian forces. This map has assessed that Russia is pushing towards Bilohora to the south of Bakhmut, and you guys can see here, this also depicts something sort of similar, this salient being pushed out. But we've talked about this, that Russia's efforts to encircle from the south are almost certainly doomed to failure, and the reason is Chasiv Yar. Chasiv Yar is a significant town, a lot of urban areas that would be just as hard a nut to crack as Bakhmut. You guys can see it's got low-lying swamps. It has a lot of urban development. It has an absolutely Byzantine road network. And most importantly, the eastern side of Chasiv Yar is actually within small arms range of the western side of Bakhmut, meaning that if you tried to encircle Bakhmut and did not neutralize, or Russia failed to neutralize Ukrainian forces in Chasiv Yar, the forces here in this big open terrain just would absolutely get their clocks cleaned. It would be a military disaster to try to push through this gap here. And so I don't think you're going to see Russia do that. I think you may see them trying to flank, probably out of some sort of misguided effort, or on the belief that if they push really hard, they can maybe take this H-32 and cut off a major thoroughfare into Bakhmut, leaving only this northern sector, 00506, as the way to get resources into the Bakhmut defenders from Chasiv Yar. But it's a tall order even to do that. Again, it would require them creating a massive salient that already, it seems like, it's going to be it's a tall order for Russia to preserve even this. As we've talked about, salients like this, they don't last long. You need to either bring forces up to preserve them, or your enemy is going to attack them and crush them from 3 sides. When we go over to War Mapper, no notable changes since the last update. The only change here is Russian forces advancing slightly in Bakhmut. Again, not really unexpected gains. This is all stuff that, we've talked about in other videos, that Bakhmut is not of such strategic importance that Ukraine needs to lose a significant portion of its combat power defending it. The most important thing is that Russia loses a lot of its combat power taking it. One other note, let's see if we can find it here, is actually an interesting bit of news that Poland's president spoke to U.S. congressmen in Davos, and that the conversation centered around the Abrams thread. This is, of course, a reference to the U.S.'s main battle tank, the Abrams, and the media has been raising the topic: will first-line, top-rated main battle tanks get sent to Ukraine? At least for the U.S., they have a significant reserve of Abrams battle tanks, due primarily, I think, to the internal politics around whose district manufactures them. And so there's been an oversupply of Abrams and Abrams parts for a long time. There's a lot of strategic reserves of Abrams. So for the U.S., the question isn't, do we have the Abrams to send? The question is, do we want Ukraine and to receive first-rate main battle tanks? The biggest fear, I think, being that if they were to fall into Russian hands, some of their more advanced stuff could be reverse engineered and just literally used by Russian troops, which would simply just be bad. But it seems generally like many of these countries are, many Western partners are looking to the U.S. To indicate whether they are going to be supplying main battle tanks to Ukrainian armed forces. Of course, you can see what happened when the U.S. Agreed to provide Bradley fighting vehicles to Ukraine, that many, many other countries also began to supply their own. Canada and recently Sweden sending CV-90s and Archer self-propelled howitzers. So there's definitely a significant the crowd effect, if you will, herd effect, where when the U.S., the big dog, provides these things to Ukraine, other countries are more willing to follow suit. But Russia, of course, is not going to take this sort of thing lying down. Russia has acknowledged that it at least appears to have acknowledged privately that they are going to have to step up their mobilization, their military effort, and prepare for a longer, more protracted conflict. The way Putin is doing this is by trying to link the invasion of Ukraine, with the Soviet efforts in the Second World War. This is pretty comical, because you may recall in the Second World War, a major European power invaded the then Soviet Union unprovoked and in violation of a treaty they had signed. In contrast, Russia has invaded Ukraine unprovoked, also in violation of a treaty they had signed. So I guess Russia is correct in drawing some Second World War analogies to these events, though it has the complete opposite side. Utterly insanely, they believe that it is Ukraine that is the large European power threatening poor, innocent Russia, and that Ukraine is actually attempting to, I don't even know how I'll remain monetized if I use this word. No one knows the rules anymore. I'm just going to use it and we'll see if I do anything, is accused Ukraine of conducting a genocide against Russia. I just want to point something out. When we look at the map, you guys can see here's Ukraine, right? This is Ukraine, and all of this is Russia. Guys, Russia is a major European power. I don't know how else to make this clear. That is orders of magnitude more, I mean, larger, sure, but with a larger population and just more economic activity. They have so much oil that they ship out, and I just need to point this out, to point out the utter preposterousness of this claim that somehow tiny Ukraine, the poorest country in Europe, was an imminent threat to Russia. Utter insanity, truly. They also, of course, accuse the West of assembling a coalition of European countries to use Ukraine as a proxy war to oh God, this will get me demonetized, to resolve the Russian question, which he compares to the policy Germany had towards one of its ethnic and religious minorities in the Second World War. This is actually disgusting. And their desire to strategically defeat Russia is tantamount to a genocide of the Russian people. This is madness. This is complete madness. And even the Russian people must surely understand this is madness, even if they can't publicly say it. And that this is simply just like the Soviet misadventure in Afghanistan, simply a largely geopolitical driven conflict, which is being propagandized and couched in more grand terms than it warrants. Certainly, they won't be the first and last country to do these things, but drawing some of these comparisons is actually like pretty gross. So, all of this, of course, they're also concurrently moving to try to increase the output of their military industrial base, running their factories 24 hours a day, exempting defense workers from mobilization, and other efforts in the backfield to make sure that Russia can equip the greater number of mobilized troops that's almost certainly on their way. Of course, Prigozhin continues his efforts to dunk on the Russian Ministry of Defense, which, is pretty easy to do given their limited competence. But the even Prigozhin has some weird ones. He observed that beards are customary for many Muslim and Orthodox Christian fighters. He stated that war is the time of the active and courageous, not of the clean-shaven who turn in phones to the warehouse. All right, whatever, man. This is, yeah. He's dunking on the Russian Ministry of Defense for rolling out mandates that everyone must be clean-shaven. This is just madness. Again, I'm not arguing with the fact Russia has clearly made battlefield gains. How much effort have they put in, and how little, and like, is it the effort expended worth the limited gains on territory of limited value? That's not for us to, I can't see that for sure. But what I do know is that this sort of narrative construction is really, really pretty wild. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Of course, if you want access to the combat videos, the viral ones I'm talking about, I break those all down on the Patreon. And because it's Patreon, I don't have to play the language games of coming up with euphemisms. We can just speak clearly, and no one can demonetize my Patreon. Anyway, thanks so much to my Lieutenant tier patrons. You guys are the real heroes. And I'll see all you guys in the next one.